I decided to make a video of how to put your um, game over and your score on your screen, since I meant to do that in class, but I was, working with everybody with their other stuff. And then there is a tutorial on how to do that on Unit 5, but it's a little different. They have spawning in the game manager, and then you already have your spawning in your spawn manager, so it doesn't really translate. So I just want to show you how to do this in pretty much any game you've got going on right now. So I just modified Prototype 2 because it's a lot like what most of you are doing, but if it's not exactly the same, it's fine. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to give yourself a game manager. So I have one already. I already did this one, and I'll just show you real quick how it works. So I've got it so that the dogs are each worth different points. I think 1, 2, and 3 points or something. I don't know. But when I shoot them, you can see on the game display on the upper corner it says game 26, 30. I think I made it too easy for myself, but I made the guy move really fast and the dogs move slowly. But when the dogs get past a certain point, if they get past me, then it says game over. I don't have anything that says you win. You can modify it for if you get to a certain score, then you can have you win coming up. You can modify it for that. And also we can work on this next week. We'll be doing VR, but there's no coding in VR. It's just kind of dragging things into a room and putting them places and then clicking on different settings to make them do different things. So if you want to still work on your game, you can still work on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make what's called a game manager, and that's going to keep track of this text. So the game manager is just, you'll do create empty, and then you're going to type in game manager. You could do it without it, with a space between game and manager, but just for this time, just let's make it without a space so that we're all doing the same thing. So type game manager and press enter. I'm going to get rid of mine since I already have one. And so you'll have this thing called game manager, and then yours won't have a script yet, but then you're going to create a script like we usually do. Right click, hit create C# script, and you're going to call that one also game manager. And you'll notice that it has this little wheel looking thing automatically because it recognizes it as something special. Then you're going to drag your game manager onto your game manager up here. I'm not going to because I already did that, but that's what you're going to do. So then you'll have game manager and you'll have this script here. Yours won't have these things yet. So the next thing, if you need to pause and do one of these things, that's fine. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to right click in this empty space. And sometimes you might not have empty space because you've got all this stuff open maybe. So just click on these little arrows to get rid of some of the stuff that you don't really need to see right now. And so you're going to right click and click UI, which stands for user interface. And then over here, we're going to pick Text Mesh Pro. Also in Unit 5, if you want to do something ever where you're clicking on things to make something happen, that shows you just the click event. It's very similar to everything else. I showed you how to do that. Anyway, you're going to click Text Mesh Pro, and then after you click that, it's going to attach it to your canvas, and you're going, well, first this box is going to come up. I already did it, but this box is going to come up. I'll show you user interface, Text Mesh Pro. Mine's not coming up with the box because I already did it, but there's a box that might come up right here, and there's a horizontal line that asks you if you want to import something. Click yes on that, and then close the whole box. So then you'll have one of these things under Canvas. It'll say text TMP. You're going to change the name of that to score text. And then if you want a game over text, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do user interface, text mesh pro. It's going to end up in your canvas here, and you're going to name it game over text. I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't need another one. So then you'll have make a score text and game over text. And then in the score text, it's probably going to say something like type something here or whatever. So you're going to type whatever you want it to say there. This one I have score, and this one says game over. So you'll type it there. The other thing is your score might be down here at the bottom, but you might want it here, and you want your game over in the middle. So here in this little thing right here, so in score, I want it to be on the top left. So I'm going to click top left right here. And also, it still is probably not exactly in the top left. So you can change, you can drag this here, and you can see how the score is going up and down on the screen with the Y. So you want to position it where you want it, and then tell it that this is the top left, and whatever screen it's on, you want it in the top left. So that way, if it's on a bigger screen, it'll still be in the top left. This is telling it that it's on the top left. On your game over text, maybe you want that to be in the middle. So I clicked middle center, and then I messed with the X and the Y to put it in the right spot with the X and the Y. The other things you can do is you can change the font right here. If you click on that, you can change the color. You can change how big it is. I put 200 for game over. My score text is only 36. So you can just do things with different, you can make it italic, underlined, strike through. I don't know if you want that, but different things. So once you've got your text looking all pretty the way you want it to, we want to write some code to make it work. Now everybody's game manager code is going to look exactly the same. So click on your game manager and open it. You'll just click on it down here. Click. It should open in something. And then we are going to all put the same stuff. Sorry, I'm outside. One thing you're going to put is using TM Pro, just like this. This is importing a library of these text things like this. It's giving Unity your editor and your editor and your IDE. It's giving it information from what's called the library from Unity, which is a collection of functions that someone wrote already, and now you're just importing them so that you can use them. And these are these text functions you're importing right here. Otherwise, it wouldn't know what this stuff is. So now you're going to type public text mesh pro u GUI. Graphical user interface, Unity graphical user interface, I guess. Text mesh pro UGUI. So this is just a data type of this text object that we're going to use. And then we're going to call it score text for our score text. And then we're going to declare another public text object, and we're going to name it game over text. So this is all in this top, at the top of the class before start. So we could just type the other stuff in, but let's just look at this first. So when you go back to your project, and then you go to your game manager, at this point, you should see two of these little spots here where we made these variables. We made a score text variable, and there's going to be, you'll have like a hole here, and you're going to drag score text into that hole. And then you should have a game over text hole right there, and you're going to drag game over text into that hole. And so now what that did is, now this variable is that score text that you drug into the variable. And this game over text is the game over text. So now we can use these to tell it what to write in here, 0, 5, 100, whatever. And then we can use this one to tell it to show game over or not. Now under that, we're going to write public int score, and that means public because we might be able to do private, but let's just do public to be safe in case something needs to access it. And then we can change things to private later if you want. Int means integer. The score is probably going to be an integer 1, 2, 3. It's probably not going to need a float like 4.5 or something like that. And then score. We're going to keep track of the score. So don't worry about this part yet. We don't need anything in update, but we are going to write a function. We are going to write a function to update the score. It's going to be a public function because other scripts, whenever there's a collision, they're going to call update score to make the score go up or down or whatever you want it to happen. If there's an untrigger or an uncollision in another script, in that thing that says, destroy object or game over or whatever, we're going to call update score. And then we're going to pass through how much we want to update the score. So if you type public void update score, we're just declaring our function here, update score. And then in here we're going to have one parameter. It's going to be an integer, and we're going to call it score to add. So that means if we call update score from another program, maybe for another script, maybe we want the score to go up, or maybe we want the score to go down, depending on what they hit. Maybe we want it to go up by 5, or maybe we want it to go up by down by 10, whatever. So this is, we're going to pass in that amount. And here we're going to call it score to add. And so then our score variable, we're going to add, this means score equals score plus score to add. This is just a shorthand. So that means whatever variable we pass in, we're going to add it to the score. So if we pass in a negative something, then the score will go down. And then our score text, which is what we put up here, that's our text thing out there. We're going to say score text dot text equals, we want to say literally score plus whatever the score is at the time. So that is going to update our score. We're just going to call that from wherever our collision or our trigger event is, which I'll show you that later. And then here, we're going to type public void game over. Public so that we can call it from another script. Void because it's not returning anything. Game over. We're just calling it game over because that's descriptive, and we're not passing it anything. We're just, anytime it's called from another script, we're going to set the game over text, game object set active to true. So we're not changing what it says. This changes what this one says. But this one, it just makes it active or not. So set active true means it's showing, and set active false means it's not showing. So that brings me to up here. So we want to initialize a couple things. At the beginning, we want to update the score to 0. So we're going to pass in 0. So when we call update score, it's going to go down here and find update score. It's going to pass in 0. So now score to add is 0. It's going to add 0 to score, which is 0, and it's going to print score 0. And then here we've got game over text, game object set active is false. That means the game over text is not active, it's not showing, because we don't want the game to be over at the beginning. We want it not to show. So everyone's game manager probably is going to look exactly like this. So now's the part where your game might look different, but it's basically the same thing. So in either your player controller, I don't have collisions or untrigger events in my player controller. Mine are in my detect collisions. But if yours are in your player controller, the thing that I'm telling you to do next, you're going to do in your player controller. If your on collision enter or your on trigger enter is in your detect collisions script, you're going to do what I'm about to tell you in your detect collisions. Okay, one or the other, wherever it is. If it's in both, then you'll have to do it to both, I guess. But I have void on trigger enter in here for when the bone hits the dog. Let's say feeds the dog. So in here, sorry, I'm outside to get away from the TV inside. The dog's barking and the bird's chirping and there's a wasp and whatever. So I already had destroy object because game object is the thing that detect collisions is attached to. And my detect collisions is attached to the dogs. So whenever there's a trigger, whenever the trigger is the bone, right? The bone, it has the is trigger checked. So whenever the bone touches it, the thing that's attached to this, that's the game object. It's going to be destroyed, so that means the dog disappears. Also, I decided that I want to update the score with some points. Now in Unit 5, it has, it uses an array. In the game manager, or you could put that in the spawn manager, but that's kind of, it's a little more complicated. It put the point value in the game manager. This is just easier to access, so we'll just do it this way. So we want to say we're going to tag whatever things we want to cause a score. So if your something's tagged as enemy, or something's tagged as player, if it's tagged as animal, tagged as obstacle, tagged as whatever it's tagged as, the thing that when it's hit, you want it to score a point. You'll do this. Now, if you only have one thing, if it's only the one thing, like if I, sorry, not one thing, but if I wanted them all to update the score with 1, then I could just say game manager update score with 1. I wouldn't even need this if here. I wouldn't need any of the ifs. I could just put this here. I could just put that there and leave the rest of this out, and it would say every time this happened, every time the bone hits the dog, I'm going to update, I'm going to call game manager.update score, and I'm going to pass 1 point. So you can do that. You can make everything be 1 point. But if you want some things to be worth some points, and maybe some things negative points, if it's bad, if it's good, it's worth, you get points. That's when you're going to do the thing with the if statement and the tags. So to tag something, most of you know how to do that, I think. My dogs are all tagged. You just, over here it asks you to tag something. We did that before with the obstacle, with the guy who was running and jumping over the obstacle. Remember, we tagged them as ground or obstacle. I made tags. You can add a tag with this, and then you'll tag, I have one tagged as dog 1, dog 2, and dog 3, because I want to differentiate how many points each thing gets. If you're not differentiating the points, you don't have to do it. So I said if game object, which is the thing that's attached and got hit, is tagged with dog 1, I'm going to call update score, and I'm going to pass in 1 point. If it's tagged with dog 2, I'm going to call update score and pass in 2 points. You can do as many as you want. Maybe dog 3, for some reason, has negative points. Maybe you have something where, something you're trying to hit and you get positive points, and then trying not to hit, and then you get negative points for that thing. You can do that too. The other thing we need to do after you pass that, you see it says if game object compare tag dog 1, Game Manager update score. We're accessing the update score function in Game Manager, so we have to tell it where to find it. So at the top of your either detect collisions or your player controller, whichever one you're in that has your trigger or collision events, you're going to put public Game Manager, just like that. And then in start, you're going to say Game Manager, which is this. You're going to tell it what it is. It's going to be game object. Sometimes you can just do find, but it wouldn't, I was having this problem, it just wouldn't link for some reason. One game it did, I tried, oops, what did I do? I just did something bad. Oh. One game I tried to link it with just find, and it worked, and this one it didn't, so this is another way that seems to work. So I have find with tag game controller. So I want to find game controller and use the game controller scripts update function, and I also want to use its game over function, because remember in Game Manager over here we have this update score function and this game over function, and so I want to use them, and I want to tell this thing where to find it so I can use it. So I'm going to type find with tag game controller get component game manager. And so now that's setting this variable here, or this object, game manager, it's setting it to, I said find with tag. So I took my game manager and I tagged it. And one of the things that was already available, and I didn't have to make a tag, was game controller, so I just picked that. So now that game manager is tagged as a game controller, now I can find it. I'm saying find the thing that's tagged as game controller and get its script called game manager. So then when I say game manager.update score, it has a link to that script in there, and then it can call that function in here, and also this one. So then the rules just kind of depend on what you want to do. I also have, if I put this in my update function, I wanted to have it so that if the dogs got past me, if my player is at -7.6 z-wise, this way, and I want to say if the dog gets behind me, then game over. So I said if transform position of the dog, this is attached to the dog, right, detect collisions. If transform position dot z is less than -10, meaning it's, down there, I'm calling game manager. It knows where it is because we found it, dot game over. And when I call game manager dot game over, it sets this game over text set active to true. It's going to be active, and it's going to show up when the dog goes through. So hopefully that helps. If you want to have something where some things are positive points and some things are negative points, tag them, and then update the score with positive or negative amounts. Let me know if you have any questions. You're not expected to do this over the weekend. I didn't get to everybody's questions, and I meant to do this already, and maybe some of you are having a lot of fun and you want to finish your game, so I just wanted to let you know how to do it. Have a great weekend, and happy coding.